Let's go to the second point. Mechanism for transformation of biological dispositions into social dispositions. Why do we say this? Okay, I'll stick to speech. As a baby, it's true I cannot speak English or Arabic or French, but I can vocalize. That is a biological capacity. Whatever. I can actually annoy the hell out of anyone who wants to be annoyed without having any linguistic capacities. But what happens? This is a biologically given capacity. But the capacity to speak is the transformation of this biological capacity into the social capacity to speak. But this is not just where we're at for Bourdieu. And this is the aim of the habitus. Habitus does not mean only that I have the capacity to speak English. It also means the capacity to know how to speak English to whom, where. It is a social know-how, not just an utterance know-how. I internalize the capacity to know how to speak to whom, at what point, and how much. All of these are part of the sociology of speaking. I can watch a bird fly and internalize its flight for as long as I can. I will not have a flying habitus. Full stop. If you do not have a biological capacity, it cannot be transformed into a social capacity. However, there are interesting studies which shows that this is the basis of imagination and creative imagination. When the habitus internalizes things it cannot biologically produce, this is where creative imagination should start. I'm internalizing all this flying, and I can't physically fly. My brain starts taking me to flying in the imagination. We are dealing with a very obscure mechanism here. In the human body, habitus is not, anyway, it's a property, it's a theory of the property of the human body. It is a capacity, Bourdieu says, to classify and recognize. So I learn how to classify things from other people classifying them. Hot also, don't touch, etc. All of it, all of this interaction with the world, internalize, I start knowing how to classify, but know how to move. Internalized modality of moving. You know, you can go anytime in Sydney to Bondi Beach and look at newly arrived immigrants from places where they have no beach. And you can look at them walking, and you can see. This is very basic ethnographic exercise. You can see that their body has not evolved walking on the beach, and they look gauche. Walking on the beach, well, Aussies look spunky and wonderful, of course. Now, this is the idea that the body is attuned to its environment. The body attunes itself to its environment. Now, very crucial for Bourdieu's theory of habitus is that this knowledge is body knowledge. It is not just It is not about, oh, wait a second, let me think about it. How should I catch this? Or it's not about sitting and thinking. It's about internalizing knowledge in your body. It's like when you are typing. If you want to sit down and say, where is A? Let me see now. where is B, where is, you don't think. Knowing how to type is body knowledge. If it's not body knowledge, you can't type. Your body adapts to the environment it is acting, and it's like when you wake up and want to go somewhere familiar. You don't wake up and say, okay, where's the bathroom? I wonder, will I have time, etc. And you end up waking up completely. No. You go, come back, body takes you, your brain is still asleep. This is the idea of body knowledge. This is, by the way, something which Bourdieu has taken from the phenomenological tradition. If people are into this, I mean, Husserl, Merleau-Ponty are very much sort of like what he quotes when he is giving lectures in relation to Habitus. Accumulation of investment, illusio, accumulation of efficiency, habitus. Now, accumulation of recognition, capital. The idea of capital, first, capital can be seen simply as resources in Bourdieu's world. Something that I have that helps me be efficient. Something like social capital can be this. Social capital, which is your relations. What kind of relations you have in life help you be efficient in life. Sometimes technology stops you from being efficient in life as you are delivering a lecture. I don't know what happened. Capital is linked to illusio in the sense that capital is what matters to me. It is what I want to pursue. It is what gives my life a meaning, therefore I want more of it. Don't think in a grand way, The things that give our life meaning are multiple. It could be how I look. It could be sort of like what kind of friends I have. It could be So, you have in Bourdieu social capital, which is relational capital. You have cultural capital, which is know-how. You accumulate know-how. I know how to act here. I know how to dress. I know how to move in specific circles. I know how to talk to academics. This is what we're talking about. Okay, academia is important for me. It gives my life a meaning. I start accumulating academic capital. But of course, academic capital itself is a variety of capital. Some people get a thrill out of teaching capital. Some people get a thrill out of research capital. And each form a specific social group, if you like, that valorizes a specific capital. And people start a game of accumulation. Fashion. I accumulate fashion. I'm spunky. I'm not talking about me, I'm giving examples, by the way. If you want to think it's me, it's fine. It's about this accumulation. Let's say I'm accumulating fashion. Notice, if you look at a fashion magazine and say, wow, this is fashionable. It just came out today. I like this jacket and these pants. And you go buy this jacket and these pants, which had appeared in the journal in the morning, and you walk in your fashion milieu wearing exactly what you have seen as fashionable in the magazine. You can imagine how unfashionable this would be. You can imagine why. Because you have lacked what Bourdieu would call distinction. The accumulation of capital has to be recognized, but if you are just a mimicker, you're dead. You have to know how to accumulate capital while showing a little bit of difference. This is how you accumulate being in the process of accumulation. Distinction. Symbolic capital is the amount of recognition that your accumulation of capital has given you. Bourdieu tells us capital is arbitrary. The value of capital is arbitrary. That is, there is nothing intrinsically valuable about any specific capital that you accumulate. It is always intersubjective. You have to have others value what you are valuing in order to enter the game of accumulation. I can be accumulating nationalism. Look at me, I'm nationalist. I can accumulate nationalism. But enter into a non-nationalist social milieu in which my capital is worthless. In my book, White Nation, I have used, for instance, what I call national capital. This is how you accumulate Australianness. So I establish how do you accumulate Australianness. This is, I break it into specific things that you accumulate, whether you are accumulating accent, whether you are accumulating looks, or whether you are accumulating more modes of speaking about Australia, many things, religion. So some people convert their Christianity. Migrants, Lebanese migrants I know I work with, they put a cross to try and convert their Christianity into Australianness. That is, they are trying to make their Christianity, they think, wait a second, Australia, they value Christianity, it makes you much more likely to be recognized as Australian than if you're Muslim. And so I want to emphasize my Christianity. I want it to become symbolic capital within the national milieu. I accentuate my Christianity. These are modes of accumulating being. Now, because capital is arbitrary, because it is intersubjective, capital offers us what we call a Phallic modality of being. What is a Phallic modality of being? A Phallic modality of being is how basically you get a buzz out of nothing. It is about how you accumulate something which you think is the most important thing in the world, while in fact it is only important in a relation. What is phallic? I'll give you a little example. Phallic being, you take a little bit of plastic, I can crack it here from a pen here, something totally useless, and I see two toddlers on the ground, and I throw this little bit of plastic on the ground. And then one of them spots it and goes for it. As soon as one of them goes for it, the other sees the other going for it, they will go for it too. As the other is going for it, the first one who is going for it first will think, it must be important because the other one is going for it, I'd better get it. And as they rush to get it, the other will say, God, he's rushing to get it, I'd better get it first. And suddenly you have a dynamic where everyone wants it, thinking that this is it. having it is the most important thing on top of the earth. This is Phallic modality of being. You think you have something which is fantastic, but it's only fantastic in this intersubjective modality. As Freud would have it, but I won't talk about Freud a lot leave it for next week, but as Freud would have it, it creates a lot of paranoia because you're constantly worried about the value of what you have. You want validation. The person who has the phallus has a serious problem because everyone's looking at him, usually a male, the phallic order, and saying, wow, you've got something fantastic. And the person with the phallus will say, yes, I've got something fantastic. And then go, but I wonder why I don't feel anything. And so I start thinking, well, maybe what I have is not so good after all. Maybe I need more of it. Maybe my father has got bigger things. Maybe. This is the phallic modality of being. It's paranoid. It's constantly worried about loss, so it has to accumulate all the time. Capital and the accumulation of capital is always of this order. Now, I will probably be emphasizing more the anthropological concept simply in terms of time, but I want to go with some of the key sociological concepts of Bourdieu. I want to start, this is not in the right order, I want to start with field, first of all. Society as a combination of fields. What is a field? First, we were talking about accumulation of capital. We were saying that something becomes very valuable and people are accumulating it. I'm accumulating fashion, I've got more fashion than you, etc. Now, a field is a space of distribution of capital. That is, when you look at the totality of a group who are involved in the accumulation of a specific capital, you will find that this capital is unequally distributed among them. And the field, like habitus, a field is an intellectual construct for understanding the social, posited as a property of the social. It's a theory of society. Society is not one field, it is an articulation of fields. There are as many fields as there are accumulations of capital. And you, as a social researcher, if you want to understand this group who are interested in accumulating looks, or you're interested in a group who are interested in accumulating writing capital and are competing among each other. Writing capital is very interesting, how you value, devalue specific writings. And you have to struggle to valorize your writing and make people think that what you're writing is very important. This is how you should follow me and write like me. I've got a lot of writing skills. There's a field of writing in this sense, or public writing. One of the interesting things that happened to me when I published White Nation, because it was a public thing, I had some people attacking me. And one of the things they used to attack me was very funny, because kind of like a couple of journalists benevolently said, this must be his PhD thesis. That was a very funny thing to say, you see, to me. First, it wasn't my PhD thesis, but that's not the point. The point was that they actually thought that by saying it's a PhD thesis, it's a way of saying, poor baby, he doesn't know what he's doing. That is, in their mind, a PhD thesis is a lowly thing. And if you point out that a piece of writing as a PhD thesis, it means that guy, unlike me, who last night wrote the whole article overnight, he spent 5 years working on it, or something. I don't know what I mean. But you see, specific forms of writing are valorized in specific fields. So you have to position how people are constantly fighting to valorize their capitals, and they are constantly struggling to accumulate more capital than others. And this creates distributions of capital which are always there. So you are always located in a field of accumulation. So these people we have been talking about who are accumulating being, accumulating efficiency through habitus, accumulating illusio, they're not hopping into a world as if they don't. They always exist in a social space where already a lot of accumulation has been happening. And so you are always positioned in class locations. But very important for Bourdieu is not just where you are located, that is how much capital you inherit, for instance, but the trajectory. The notion of trajectory is crucial for Bourdieu. For him, anyone who wants to understand class as simple location cannot produce any, really, sort of like understanding of how people move in life. What is trajectory? Trajectory is where you are coming from and where you're going. So, if you want to deduce, just a very simple example, if you want to deduce a way of feeling secure about yourself because of the capital you have, you cannot understand someone being secure about the amount of capital they have if you don't understand how much capital they have and how much they think they're going to have. That is, their security is linked to how they are moving through a class location, not the class location. For Bourdieu, for instance, in his book, Distinction, there's a big differentiation between the people who successfully accumulate and the people who have so successfully accumulated that they are free from the need to accumulate. This is a very crucial differentiation. Your culture, you're rich, even in the accumulation of money. There are people who are rich because they are making a lot of money, and they have to keep making a lot of money. And there are people who are rich because they don't have to keep making a lot of money. And for Bourdieu, this is the location of the cultural sublime in some ways. It is when you are free from the need to pursue money. This is the difference between you can be very rich but still located in petty bourgeois culture. I need to make money, even though I have money. However, I can inherit a relaxed way in which I have learned, because of the security of my inheritance, that no rush. I can enjoy a bit of wine and etc., etc. This is how class distinctions are made. Notice from your class location in this world in which you are struggling to accumulate specific capitals and this perspectivist world in which Bourdieu is constructing, the struggle for your capital is the struggle for the making of the world, the social world. The more you succeed in making your capital dominant, the more you are constructing the world. So there is a complicity between your domination and your capital. Very quickly, two modes of domination. You can dominate as an orthodoxy. There is no heterodoxy to speak of, and therefore your categories become common sense categories of the world. This is total domination. Whenever things appear natural, whenever in society people are not questioning something, whenever things are taken for granted, Bourdieu says, symbolic violence. Somebody here has dominated so well, they got away with it. People, it's like the calendar, you know. You can say, so what day is it today? And nobody is going to say, well, there's actually a big struggle between the Gregorian calendar and this. And, well, according to this calendar, as opposed to, no, this is it. There was, and it's so forgotten now that you just say it is the 5th, 4th, 5th March, whatever. You don't think of it as an issue of struggle. The dominance of certain people is so complete that it has become part of the common sense of society. To conclude, for Bourdieu, the function of the intellectual is always facing symbolic violence. It is whenever you are positioned in society, social processes that appear natural, social processes that appear that they are a fatality. This is how it is. The intellectual comes and shows the social processes that have led to them. It's not an opposition. Notice, it's not an opposition to say, to side with the weak or anything. It's just because you are working on undoing what appears as it goes without saying. You immediately position yourself against the ruling order. For Bourdieu, this is the function of the state. It is very French, but also Australian. The state finances intellectuals. The state finances, pays my wages, pays your wages. If you are an academic, the state pays you as an intellectual to get stuck into it. It is a function of the democratic order for him that the state finances academics who are engaging in processes of denaturalization and defatalization. When the state stops financing this order, it means the state is moving away from democracy. There's also a function that is therapeutic in the sociological research for Bourdieu. You will find it wonderfully done in his esquisse, in his portrait, self-portrait, self-analysis. He's attempted to sociologically look at himself and his own production. But there's also a lot of work in very strange places in his work, like in a book called The Sociology of the Economy, where he takes interviews, and the interview is what he calls socioanalysis. And what interests him is that because of all the social determinations to which we are subjected our space of freedom is gained by understanding the social processes that determine us. So the sociologist, by looking at the processes of social determination, can give people margins of freedom. Finally, it's the idea of the corporate intellectual and the autonomy of the intellectual field. That is, this is the idea that the intellectual has to produce works of denaturalization, defatalization, has to struggle to maintain the autonomy of intellectual work, autonomy from political interference, from financial interference. This is why the state has to provide this autonomy. And this actually marks a very interesting shift in Bourdieu's history from being someone who wants to say, no, I'm a social scientist, I don't want to be political, to a point where he started being mega political. And for him, that was the point where he felt the state was no longer committed to securing academic freedom. It was interfering too much in universities. And so it is in the name of securing this autonomy that could allow a kind of sociology that he became political. Thank you.